Terrifying whispers at midnight, the sinister truth exposed after 30 years of haunted silence. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, the dim light flickering ominously, illuminating shadows that danced around her. It was a Thursday night, but not just any night. The air was thick with dread, and the clock ticked past midnight. The house, now her sanctuary, felt more like a prison of unease. She fought to focus on the work piled before her, papers crumpling under her tired hands. Outside, the suburb of Elmwood Heights lay still, its charm slipping away, revealing a growing pulse of fear. Suddenly, a whisper snaked through the silence. It was gentle but insistent, almost like a breath, beckoning her from the dark corners. Sarah's heart raced. She shook her head, dismissing it as fatigue's cruel joke. But then, unexpectedly, the soft murmurs turned into unsettling noises. Scrapes and thuds erupted from the basement. Her children's peaceful sleep shattered. "No," she murmured, jolting out of her chair. Fear clawed at her chest, demanding action. Each creak of the floorboard screamed caution as she moved toward the basement door, her pulse echoing in her ears. The comforting familiarity of neighbors watching from trendy porches twisted into something sinister. Elmwood Heights became a theater of shadows, their unsettling presence casting doubt on the safety of her new life. Who were these neighbors? What lay beneath their polite facades? In a desperate bid to quell her gnawing anxiety, Sarah reached the basement door and, as she yanked it open, a chill swept down her spine. Inside, a box lay half hidden among the debris. Curiosity overtook her hesitation. She opened it. Old newspaper clippings spilled out like secrets begging to be spoken. Each article chronicled the tragic disappearances of families, their smiles eerily familiar. As she read, dread replaced curiosity, the room closing in on her like a tightening noose. Each name, each face was a reminder of the vague terror that rooted in the place she called home. Panic finally surged through her veins. What was happening? She slammed the box shut and locked the basement door. Her mind spun. How could she keep her children safe? But as she ascended the stairs, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Shadows morphed and danced along the walls, alive, taunting her. A sudden buzz jolted her. An anonymous text lit up her phone. "They're coming for you." Hot, jagged fear coursed through her like fire. No. No. She yelled, rushing toward her children's room. But dread gripped her heart as she burst through the door to find their beds empty, the curtains billowing in the cold night air. An open window. "Mia. Ethan." She called, her voice cracking like glass. The silence stretched, mocking her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Adrenaline surged. She dashed through the house, frantically searching every room. Outside, the neighborhood loomed like a predator, the familiar faces now transformed into specters of dread. Her heart raced as she scanned for anything, anyone. With each step, a haunting whisper threaded through her thoughts. Those she thought she could trust had become shadows in a nightmare. As she clutched her phone, ready to call for help, she saw it. A shadow slipped behind a nearby tree, grinning just enough to unsettle her. The very essence of Elmwood Heights felt alive, pulsating with hidden truths. Would she unravel the mystery before it consumed them all? Or would the whispers of the night claim yet another innocent soul, leaving her just another ghost among the lost? The wind howled outside, and the trees seemed to twist their limbs, reaching for something unseen. Sarah's mind raced, a cacophony of panic drowning out logical thought. Where were Mia and Ethan? Why hadn't she heard them? The open window mocked her, letting in the colder night air, whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear. "Hurry, just hurry," she muttered, a futile prayer. Yet, those familiar streets felt foreign, infused with malevolence. Gripping her phone tighter, she stepped outside, her breath visible in the cold. "Kids!" she screamed, her voice echoing against the stony silence. The neighborhood was a graveyard. Lights flickered in a few houses, but none showed signs of life. Shouldn't someone else be awake? She scanned the rows of homes, now mere shells. Had they all turned into these haunting figures of darkness? A rustling sound diverted her attention. She squinted into the shadows of her yard. There, just beyond the hedge, a silhouette darted across her vision. Fear swallowed her whole. She stumbled towards it, heart hammering in her chest. A logical voice reminded her to turn back, but maternal instinct propelled her forward. "Who is there?" she called into the darkness, voice trembling. No response. Panic surged, forcing the air from her lungs. Taking a tentative step closer, the darkness shifted. "Mommy!" A soft voice pierced the night. "Ethan!" She nearly wept, her heart leaping in relief as she rushed towards the sound, but it was growing quieter. "Ethan, wait!" But before she could reach him, a hand gripped her arm from behind. She gasped, spinning around only to find Mr. Whitmore, their neighbor. His face was pale, eyes wide and wild. "What are you doing out here?" he asked, shifting his weight nervously. "You shouldn't be. It's out tonight." "Out? What's out?" Her voice was urgent, demanding answers. "Where are my children?" He hesitated, glancing at the house, then back to her. "It's not safe." "You have to." A loud crash erupted from within her house. The sound of shattering glass splintered the fragile silence, and Sarah's stomach dropped. "Stay here," Mr. Whitmore whispered, although he was already turning, moving toward the sound. The moment he vanished into the shadows of her home, Sarah felt the weight of isolation press down on her. She followed, dread pooling at the base of her spine like ice. Stepping inside, she held her breath, listening. A murmur started again, louder now, aggressive, pulling her deeper into the house. She reached the living room, and screamed. The remnants of her life lay scattered around her broken furniture, as if a struggle had taken place. Enveloped in devastation, she feared the worst. Then, from the kitchen, a low growl resonated, vibrating through her bones. It echoed like an animal ready to pounce. She edged toward the door, heart pounding. "Mia! Ethan!" She yelled desperately, the tension thick like a noose tightening around her neck. But something more sinister tinged her voice. Fear ruled now. "Come to me," the voice lured, smooth and dark like a serpent. It wasn't her children. "Get away from my kids!" Sarah shouted, her voice cracking. The growl became a hiss, the air thickening with venomous hostility. The house shook. Instinct fought logic as she prepared to confront whatever darkness lurked in her kitchen. Little did she know, something had been waiting for her all along. What had it planned for her children? What horrors awaited her on the other side of that door? Her breath quickened as she crossed the threshold into the kitchen. The air felt wrong, heavy with an energy that crackled like static. Shadows slithered across the tiled floor, whispering their malign secrets as she pressed on, each step a battle against the instinct to flee. "Ethan! Mia!" She cried again, the desperation in her voice building to a raw edge. The growl morphed into a low chuckle, riddled with malice, sending chills racing down her spine. It felt as if the walls themselves were closing in, expanding and contracting as if her fear was feeding the very darkness she faced. The kitchen light flickered like a dying star, sputtering above the counter. She strained her eyes into the depths, trying to grasp the source of the sinister presence. A shadow moved. It twisted and turned, the outline morphing like smoke. It slithered behind the fridge, just out of sight. The hissing intensified, swirling around her ears, filling her mind with chaos. "You can't save them," it whispered, each word laced with icy laughter. "They're mine now. Stop. Stop it." She yelled, her heart racing as she lunged for the fridge, hoping that in doing so, she could chase away the demon that toyed with her sanity. But the moment she touched the cool metal, a jolt coursed through her, paralyzing her fingers. "Mom!" The voice was faint now, lost in the shadows. The sound prompted a surge of adrenaline. With all her strength, she pulled and the fridge popped forward. A torrent of cold air erupted, and with it, the darkness thrummed fiercely, revealing a figure behind it. Not a figure. A writhing mass, a grotesque amalgamation of limbs and faces, each one contorted in shrieks of fear. Twisted smiles and sunken eyes scanned her, hungry and unending. Time seemed to freeze. The eyes locked onto her, and a sickly voice slipped from the creature's fabric, a haunting choir of her children's laughter mixed with something sinister. "Mommy, save us!" She staggered back, the room spinning as ice clawed at her veins. Her children. Where were they? What had happened to them? "Mommy, we're lost!" The voices trailed off into a cacophony of despair, echoing around her like a warning. As she turned to run, the kitchen door slammed shut, trapping her. "No! Let me out!" She screamed, a primal instinct kicking in as terror surged through her. She banged on the door, echoes of her panic returned. "Help us!" More voices cried out, and she pressed her ear against the cool wood, desperate to decipher reality from the nightmare. If only she could just break through, if she could just get out and find them. The shadows coiled tighter around her, snaking in like fog, seeping into her thoughts, urging her to join the endless despair. "Give and embrace the darkness," they whispered, their tempting chorus seeping into her mind. With a sudden burst of defiance, she took a step back, adrenaline pulsing through her. She couldn't lose her fight, not when her children were at stake. Rushing back to the fridge, she gripped its sides and flung it aside, pushing with everything she had. Light flooded in. But it wasn't the kitchen she remembered, it was a twisted version. Their living room melted into a haunting scene, where her children had been only now. It was filled with shadows, all writhing in anticipation. They seemed to be waiting for her. "Mommy!" They cried in unison, but the warmth she knew was coated with a thin veneer of something darker. She felt a cold hand grasp her heart, squeezing tighter. "Come play," they beckoned, and she realized the truth in that moment. Whatever had ensnared her children, it wasn't simply a figment of her fear. It was something real, lurking within the cracks of her once safe haven. Her heart raced as her gut twisted. If she stepped toward them, what would she lose? Before she could choose, the shadows moved closer, closing the distance, but one thing was certain: she couldn't stay here. Panic surged anew as Sarah's resolve hardened. She would face the horrors, whatever they were, for her kids. As she turned back to the door, she heard it. The growl transformed into a guttural roar, shakes of fury reverberated through the house, and the laughter morphed into a furious cry of rejection. "Come back!" The shadows lunged. Was this it? Was there no way out? Or could she somehow turn the tide of terror? She had to find out before it was too late. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She was trapped in this twisted version of her home, where shadows curled like smoke, hungry and relentless. The shrieks, now a collective roar, felt almost palpable. They clawed at her skin, numb and electric, urging her deeper into despair. She turned towards the living room, where the shadows writhed like serpents. "Ethan!" "Mia!" she cried again, voice cracking. Fear surged through her veins as she remembered their laughter, their innocence, snatched away by this malevolent force. The shadows flickered, morphing into grotesque shapes that echoed her children's likeness, but something was very wrong. "Come out!" she screamed, pushing against the door. It resisted, solid and cold. She leaned her weight against it, but it wouldn't budge. Desperation clawed at her. If she didn't find a way out soon, she might join the wailing souls captured within these walls. The living room pulsed with shadows, each flicker more sinister than the last. Flickers of memories ignited in her mind, snippets of laughter and innocence now twisted into dissonant echoes. "We're waiting for you, Mommy," the shadows chanted in a sing-song voice, guttural yet childlike. "Stop it!" she shouted, squeezing her eyes shut as visions of a sunlit backyard flashed through her. Laughter danced through the air there, a stark contrast to the terror in this suffocating space, but one thought fought through the haze of panic. If these shadows whispered lies, maybe she could turn their own game back on them. She took a deep breath, trying to silence the chaos around her. In that moment of desperation, she dropped to her knees, reaching for the cold floor. "I know you want them," she whispered, defiance oozing from her every word. "But they are mine. You can't have them." The shadows recoiled briefly, a shudder coursing through the room as if her words had struck a chord. "Mommy," they hesitated, the cry infused with an unsettling mix of hope and malice. "Show me," she demanded. "Show me where they are." A ripple of darkness rolled across the floor, forming a path toward what once was a window. The silhouettes quivered but edged closer, whispering, "Follow us." Find them. Against her better judgment, she scrambled to her feet. The hallway shifted, elongating, twisting as she moved. The deeper she went, the heavier the air became, thick with sorrow. But she couldn't back down now. If her kids were in danger, she'd face whatever darkness lurked around the corner. Shadows draped over the walls, forming ancient runes that pulsed with malice. Each step felt like entering the jaws of a lurking beast. "Let us play," they hissed, beckoning her with claws thin as spider silk. But at the end of the hallway, a door swung open, light spilling from within like a beacon. With each footfall toward that illuminating sliver, Sarah could taste the hope mingling with the scent of decay. She pushed the door wide, heart in her throat. Inside, the room was familiar yet threatening. Ethan and Mia stood at its center, surrounded by shimmering darkness, eyes wide but flickering with the light of recognition. "Mommy!" They reached for her, voices melding into sweet music, the shadows momentarily faltering, but the growl rose again, deeper, more furious than before. "They belong to me." It was no longer a whisper. It was a roar, shaking the very foundation of the house. The ground trembled as the shadows lunged, darting toward Sarah, hungry for her spirit. She couldn't lose them. She wouldn't. As the darkness stretched out its clawed fingers, she lunged forward, fueled by sheer love and the flickering light of hope. "Ethan! Mia! Hold on!" she shouted, as she raced into the fray, heart pounding, ready to defy the shadows and reclaim her children. But would love be enough to break the chains of darkness? Or was she about to unleash what lay beneath? The shadows surged, their grotesque forms merging into a swirling mass of despair around Sarah. It felt as if the very fabric of the room was tearing, each shriek piercing deeper into her soul. The familiar sight of her children, mere feet away, flickered like a faulty light bulb, threatening to dissolve back into that haunted abyss. "Come to us, Mommy," the shadows pleaded, but to Sarah, it sounded more like a mockery. The figure of Ethan morphed, his smiling face contorting into something nightmarish. "We just want to play, forever." Suddenly, the light from the room dimmed, shadows stretching like claws toward her. Panicking, she pushed through the throng of darkness, reaching for her children. "No. I'm not leaving you." Ethan and Mia's hands slipped through her fingers, the distance between them growing as the shadows pulled them away. The force of their cries twisted in her chest, knotting her with terror. She felt the cold breath of the entity behind her, its hunger thick in the air. She spun around, determined to confront it. "You won't take them. They are mine," Sarah shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if her resolve momentarily scorched them, but the entity was relentless. "They belong to the dark," it growled, the walls vibrating with its fury. "You cannot save them." Each step she took toward her children felt heavier. The air felt like lead, thickening around her limbs as the shadows clawed at her, whispering secrets of her deepest fears. "You're alone, Sarah." There's no escape. Despair threatened to drown her, but she remembered their laughter in the backyard, the summer sun tracing their smiles. "I know you're in there," she shouted, forcing the words past the tightness in her throat. "Fight them. I will come for you. Hold on." A blast of energy surged through her, igniting her resolve. The shadows hesitated, momentarily confused. She lunged for Ethan, arms outstretched, desperate to wrap them around the two bright souls caught in the dark. But just as she grasped their hands, the ground bucked violently beneath her. The room cracked open, and a blinding light poured from the newly formed fissure, illuminating the horror around her. The shadows wailed, disintegrating under the relentless blaze, their forms thrashing before her eyes. It was then she heard a deep rumble that resonated through her bones, the very essence of the house seemed to awaken. Fragments of memories echoed, familiar but corrupted, recollections layered with fear and anguish. Images of past horrors danced in the light, ghosts of previous inhabitants, their faces contorted in pain. "Leave. We couldn't, mommy, help us." Ethan's voice cut through the chaos, clear and piercing. "Stay close," Sarah cried, clutching her children's hands tightly, searching for a way out of the impending carnage. As she pulled them toward the opening, the bright light began to dim. The shadows surged back, roaring with fury. She could feel the icy tendrils wrapping around her ankles, gnawing at her resolve. "Let go, Sarah." The entity hissed, the voice now laced with a dark desperation. "You will lose everything." Just as they neared the fissure, the shadows lunged, consuming everything in their path. Time slowed, her heart pounded furiously in her chest. The darkness would not allow them to escape. But then she felt it, a glimmer of light inside her, an ember of hope. "You cannot have us," she screamed, flinging herself into the light with her children. And then it happened, everything fractured. When the world collapsed into silence, Sarah blinked against the glare of an unfamiliar sky. The ground felt warm, but an unanswered dread filled the air. "Where are we?" Ethan whispered, clutching Mia tightly. But as Sarah turned to answer, the shadows began to seep back in, twisting across the landscape like a bad dream. They weren't free yet, and she realized with dread that the darkness wasn't finished with her. "We must keep moving," she urged, her breath hitching in her throat. "But where to?" Faint laughter echoed from the distance, chilling her to the bone. Was it her children? "Mommy, come play." The whispers grew louder, inviting, treacherous. The shadows were regrouping, watching, waiting for their chance, and as Sarah stared into the void, a horrifying truth dawned on her. She had not escaped, she had only just begun to unveil the darkness lurking within. What had she truly unleashed? The ground felt like it shifted beneath her, as though the world itself conspired to swallow them whole. Sarah's pulse raced, thrumming painfully in her ears. She tightened her grip on Ethan and Mia, but fear gnawed at her heart. The laughter echoed again, both close and far away, curling around her like smoke. "Which way?" she asked, her voice trembling. The vast expanse before them was a wilderness of shadows, thick and oppressive. The sun had vanished, leaving behind a sky bruised with dark hues, as if it, too, was afraid of what lurked below. "Mommy, look." Mia pointed, her wide eyes shining with inexplicable wonder. There, nestled among the gnarled trees, a faint glow flickered like a dying star. It pulsed, a small beacon in the engulfing darkness. "That way." "Are you sure?" Panic laced her words. Every instinct screamed that they needed to run, but the light beckoned them with a deceptive allure, promising safety. Before she could respond, a frigid chill whipped through the air, causing Ethan to shiver. "I don't like it," he murmured, pressing closer to Sarah. The shadows snapped and crackled, whispering secrets meant to terrify. "Join us, children." The voice dripped with temptation, a sickly sweetness that made the hairs on her neck stand on end. "Don't you want to play?" "No," Sarah shouted fiercely. Clutching her children tighter, she felt their warmth beneath her trembling fingers, a lifeline amidst the chaos. "We're going to the light. Follow me." They weaved through the trees, the ground uneven and treacherous, roots twisting like fingers reaching out to drag them down. The laughter nipped at their heels, echoing in malicious joy. Sarah felt it closing in, a noose tightening around her throat. The light flickered violently in the distance. Just another trick? Or a chance? Dread gnawed in her stomach, yet she pressed on, desperation fueling her every step. But as they neared the glow, a hoarse whisper slithered between the branches. "You'll never escape, Sarah. You unleashed us, and now no." She shouted, forcing her way forward. "You don't control me." A sudden jolt ripped through the earth, sending them tumbling as the ground quaked beneath their feet. A chasm opened, dark and yawning, as if the very world sought to consume them. The shadows surged forth, hungry and eager. "Mommy, help!" Mia's scream pierced through the chaos, the desperation cutting deeper than any blade. Struggling to her feet, Sarah reached for her children, but the shadows clawed at their heels, dragging at their clothes and biting into their skin. "No! Get away from them!" She felt something brush against her face, cold and slimy, and her heart raced. It was right behind her, that entity, lurking just beyond her resolve. The shadows merged into a single mass, a giant eye peering through the veil, hungry and fierce. "You think you can resist?" it hissed, mockery lacing its words. "You will never find peace." Tears burned in her eyes, but she blinked them away, focusing on her children, their faces pale with fear. "Hold on to me!" she screamed above the cacophony, pulling them close as the ground trembled even more violently. With a heave, the three of them stumbled toward the light, desperately pushing ahead. But just as they reached the threshold, darkness erupted from the shadows, spiraling around them like a whirlwind. The very essence of fear coalesced, obscuring the path ahead. Sarah gasped for breath, the words almost choked out. We were almost there. But she felt an icy grip on her ankle, pulling relentlessly. "Mommy!" The sweetness in Ethan's plea broke through her armor. The shadows danced around them, their twisted forms mocking her, yet she felt a flicker of defiance that in that moment, something shattered within her, a realization that ran deeper than fear. It was not just her children at stake but her own spirit. And she wouldn't let it go. Sarah summoned every ounce of strength left within her. "Together!" she cried, and as they fought against the darkness, the light surged around them again. But another laughter erupted within the void, a sinister laughter that echoed with memories of despairing faces, of countless souls lost to what fate. In that flicker of confrontation, the question loomed like a phantom: could she confront the shadows, or would they consume her whole? As the shadows twisted tighter, Sarah sensed their true intentions lingering just past her sight, a dark truth waiting to be revealed. What had she truly awakened? The air grew thicker, wrapping around them with a suffocating weight as the shadows swirled tighter. Sarah's heart raced, pounding in sync with the darkness that sought to consume them. She felt Ethan's small body pressed against her, trembling, and Mia's frightened gaze darting between the encroaching shadows and the flickering light ahead. "Fight, Mommy! Fight!" Mia shouted, her voice a bright spark in the dark. It pulled at something deep inside Sarah, an instinct born from primal love, and ignited a ferocious determination. "Hold on to me!" Sarah yelled, her fingers tightening around their wrists. The swirling darkness seemed to shriek in protest, the voices of the damned rising like a chorus, filling her head with overlapping fears and regrets. "You led us here," it hissed. "Your curiosity awakened us. No, that's not true." The denial surged from her lips, desperate, frantic. Every pulse in her body screamed for escape, yet that light remained elusive, wavering like a mirage. In a sudden, merciless tug, the dark force yanked at Ethan's ankle, nearly pulling him free. He grasped her tightly, screaming, "Mommy!" His cries pierced through the oppressive darkness, shattering her resolve briefly. With raw instinct, Sarah wrapped her arms tighter around both children. "Together!" she shouted, each word pumped full of adrenaline. She started to pull them towards the light, but the shadows roared back, more furious than before, like a beast cornered and ready to strike. Suddenly, a blast of cold air rushed past, causing her to stagger. It had an acrid scent that made her stomach churn. "This way." A voice called from the darkness, tainted and sweet, beckoning them off the path toward the light. "Don't listen." She shouted to her children, her voice clawing against the storm of whispers. "Just focus on the light. We can do this." In the distance, she thought she saw faces emerging from the shadows, their expressions twisted by grief and longing, faces she recognized from nightmares, faces that had haunted her since she was a child. They came closer, their mouths muttering incoherent phrases, pleading for release, for freedom from the darkness enveloping them. "We could help you," one voice pleaded. It belonged to a girl Sarah had known once. Young and innocent, lost years ago, a victim, just like her. "No." Sarah choked out, shaking her head violently. "I want to let you take my children." But the hesitation lingered in her heart. Memories of whispered secrets, lost in the echoes of her childhood, formed an unbearable weight, threatening to crush her resolve. Another pulse of light erupted from ahead, brighter and more assertive, a savior against the evening's shadows. "Mommy, go," Ethan urged, pulling at her with both hands, his small but fierce spirit igniting hope in her heart. Then she felt a horrific scraping sensation against her back, as if the darkness itself was trying to claw her flesh from her bones. A primal scream erupted from her throat, shaking off the clawing tendrils of despair. "Run!" Determined, she pushed forward as the shadows writhed and twisted like snakes, anything to distract them from their fleeting chance at freedom. With each step, the screams of the lost became more frantic, drowning out her thoughts. "Join us, stay with us," they wailed. For a fleeting moment, doubt flooded her. What if that voice was right? What if escaping meant losing herself, too? Just as she reached the edge of that golden light, the ground beneath them quaked once more, cracking open with a furious roar. The shadows surged forward, grabbing at Sarah's feet, pulling her back into their grasp. But she glanced down at her children, their faces alight with fear and hope. If she could hold on to that light, to that love, maybe, just maybe, together. She cried again, and with a surge of will, lunged forward, pulling her children into the light that beckoned, feeling the embodiment of everything she was willing to fight for. But the shadows around them shrieked in outrage, and a new voice emerged, grave and mellifluous, echoing with sinister certainty. "You cannot escape." The roots of your past. As they crossed the threshold, the world around them shifted violently. The radiance dimmed, and darkness threatened to overtake them once more, leaving a terrifying question lingering: what was it that connected them to this nightmarish realm? What truth lay lurking beyond the soft glow of hope? The moment they broke through, the air shifted. Clarity returned, but it was laced with a chilling stillness. Sarah blinked against the dimming light, and instinctively, she tightened her grip on Ethan and Mia. A damp stone wall pressed against her back, grounding her despite the sudden blindness of the room. They stood in a cramped space, just outside the threshold of that shimmering sphere. "Where are we?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Panic swirled in the air like thick fog. Just a bit further. Sarah could feel her heart thundering in her chest, every second stretching taut like a drawn bowstring. The walls seemed to pulse, closing in, menacing and clammy. Ethan shivered beside her. "I don't want to be here." "Neither do I," she whispered back, forcing a calmness she didn't feel. "We have to keep moving." As her eyes adjusted, she caught sight of the far corner, where the faint glow of a weak bulb flickered like a dying heartbeat. "We have to go that way," she said, gesturing. Yet just as they began to move toward the light, a low growl rumbled from the shadows. She froze, pulling her children tightly in front of her. The air thickened, hotter now, oppressive. A shiver ran down her spine as a figure emerged, cloaked in swirling darkness. It took a hesitant step forward, and Sarah fought the urge to recoil. It was a grotesque, amorphous form. She could make out eyes, thousands of them, glinting like shards of glass in a vacuum. They glared hungrily. "Welcome back," the voice hissed, dripping with malice. "We've been waiting." "Who are you?" Sarah's voice wavered, cold dread settling in her stomach like a stone. "Oh, you know me well, Sarah." The figure edged closer. "I'm the shadow of every secret you buried. Every moment of fear, every doubt it holds me here." Sarah felt the walls around her pulse with a sinister rhythm, as if they were alive. Memories buried deep the night her father vanished, the screams she overheard, the whispers of things left unsaid. "Leave us alone!" she screamed, as something sharp grazed her ankle. She felt the darkness gripping her more insistently, claws of shadow pulling at her ankles, dragging her down. "Why run?" it crooned, a smile twisting across its formless face. "You're home now. You brought your little ones here to fulfill our bond." "Mommy, help!" Ethan yelled, struggling as tendrils of darkness snaked around his limbs. Mia clung to her tightly, wide eyes locked on their mother, begging for some sign of safety. "No!" Sarah howled, lunging toward Ethan. She was too far away. The darkness laughed, a chilling mix of triumph and mockery. It knew her weaknesses, it knew their past. The glow from the light flickered more violently now, as though it were colliding with the presence of the dark. "Don't you see?" it taunted. "You cannot escape your past. You dragged your children into it with you." Sarah's mind raced. Could she take them back? Would the light even hold if they attempted to run again? The memories cascaded over her, drowning her in a torrent of guilt and dread. The truth of her past tangled with her blood, a haunting legacy she wished to sever but couldn't. The figure stretched its shadowy arms toward her children, whispering secrets and lies, enticing them with promises of solace and protection. A part of Sarah wanted to believe it, maybe the darkness could offer refuge from their pain. But her maternal instincts ignited, burning fiercely against the lure of the abyss. "Fight, kids! We need to fight!" Her voice rang out, stronger now. "Together!" The darkness shrieked in fury, churning like a furious storm. But beyond that shriek, soft murmuring reached her ears. Inhale, exhale. Hope swirled around them, intertwining with fear, pushing her to thrust forward. Springs of courage forced her feet to move, inching toward the flickering light. For every step the shadows took, she pulled Ethan and Mia closer. The walls pressed hard on them, the darkness trying to consume what little light they had left. But then, like a flash of lightning, a distant memory ignited in her mind the innocence she fought for. "We will break this," she declared, her voice fueled by undeniable strength. And then, just before the darkness clamped down one final time, an echo cracked through the crushing weight, a sound that wasn't from her own thoughts. It was a child's laughter, rising up, threading through the thick haze. "Yes, fight!" it echoed. Sarah stopped, stunned. That laugh wasn't her children's. Then she heard the truth, jagged and sharp. The very thing that she thought she had escaped was an open door, waiting for her to confront it. Who was that voice? What had she truly been running from? Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, revealing a path leading further into the flickering light. Perhaps there was hope yet, or a new horror waiting just beyond the threshold. With her heart pounding, Sarah hesitated just outside the luminous path. The shadows recoiled, but dread still curled like smoke around her. The laughter echoed in her mind, tantalizing and insidious. It felt like a taunt, a ghostly reminder of childhood innocence now warped into something dark. "Mommy, please!" Ethan's voice pierced through the thick air, urgency lacing his words. She turned back to them, her heart ripped by their wide eyes filled with fear. "Stay close," she urged, grasping their hands tightly as she propelled them toward the light. Each step felt like trudging through mud, time stretching as the growing glow bathed them in a warm hue, contrasting sharply with the chill clawing at their backs. Still, that laughter danced at the edges of her consciousness, a reminder of the truth awaiting her. As they moved deeper into the flickering light, the laughter shifted, melding with the echoes of her own past, the whispers of a distant memory strained to the surface. "Don't ignore us," it beckoned, seductively. The tantalizing innocence twisted into something darker, each step unleashing fragments of forgotten moments. "There is more," the voice whispered, curling around her like fog. "You've locked it away, hidden it even from yourself. What will you find if you dare step forward?" Clenching her jaw, Sarah shook her head violently, as if that could banish the shadows clinging to her thoughts. But like chains, they clung tighter, reminding her of lost trust and fractured dreams. "Stay focused," Sarah shouted, louder than she intended. "We can beat this." Her stomach churned as fear clawed at the edges of her determination. Beside her, Mia trembled, her small frame quivering with anxiety. Sarah yearned to shield them from this darkness, yet the entity thrived on her uncertainty. "Mommy?" Mia's voice trembled, eyes reflecting the flickering light, filled with worry. "What is happening?" "Just keep moving," Sarah urged, forcing a smile that trembled more than she wanted to admit. "We're almost there." But even as she spoke, she knew every word was an illusion, a desperate attempt to mask the chaos swirling around them. As they neared the heart of the light, the growls resumed, a chorus of anguish, vibrating through the air. The walls shifted, the colors of the shadows deepening, rippling with malice. "Don't you see?" The figure's voice slithered through the void, mounting in a cacophony of rage. "You'll never leave this place. Your bond is too strong, too dangerous." The brilliance of the light dimmed slightly, flickering like the final breaths of a dying flame. Panic erupted in her chest. "Hold on!" she shouted, pulling her kids alongside her as they dashed toward the epicenter of the light. But the darkness surged, encompassing them with clammy fingers, clutching at her heart. The sickening laughter intensified, accompanied by a chant echoing from all sides. "Embrace it. Embrace your past." Suddenly, the brightness enveloped them, pushing back against the shadows, illuminating carved symbols along the stone walls. The air vibrated, buzzing as she recalled stories of the hidden truths her mother once whispered, of ancient pain and obsessions. Blood ties pulling them into an abyss. Mommy, Mia's whisper broke through her thoughts, laced with a blend of fear and intuition. "What if we let it in?" Sarah felt a chill race up her spine. Let it in. The mere thought tasted bitter, a mouthful of ash. But hadn't he running from it for all these years only fed the darkness? As the shadows edged closer, she felt her grasp on the situation slip. Suddenly, the light pulsed, illuminating something hidden within it, a flicker of hope, a guide through the labyrinth of despair. But would it be enough? What more awaited them on the other side of that threshold? In that moment of decision, the shadow flared once more, its leer widening, the countless eyes gleaming with a sinister promise. Will you believe or will you fall? Caught in a storm of emotions, Sarah strained for clarity, and as she reached for the light, she realized she stood on the precipice of a choice that could alter everything. This moment could bring liberation or damnation. What was the truth hidden in the laughter? And more importantly, how far would she go to unearth it? Sarah's heart raced, trapped between the snarling shadows and the flickering light. Each breath felt heavy with dread, but she held tightly to Ethan and Mia, anchors in this storm. The shadows howled, their hunger palpable, demanding a response. "Mommy, we can't stay," Ethan cried, eyes wide with terror. "We won tea." "Just trust me," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Every instinct screamed to flee, but deep down, she knew, running hadn't saved them before. What if the answers they sought lay just on the other side of that piercing light? The echoes of the past whispered, urging her to confront the very fears she had buried long ago. "Let it in," a voice teased from beyond the veil of darkness, a promise wrapped in darkness. It wrapped around her mind like a serpent, coiling tighter. "You know it all too well. Embrace your truth enough." Sarah shouted back, defiance surging through her. She would not let fear paralyze her. She turned to her children. "We're going to let all of it in, fear, pain and love. We can't run anymore, we fight together." In that moment, warmth flooded her soul, igniting hope that surged through her veins fierce, steadfast. She cracked her heart wide open, allowing both anguish and love to seep in. A brilliant, blinding energy enveloped them, pulsing like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The shadows recoiled, their snarls morphing into shrieks of fury. "You can't save them," they cried. "You can't fight who you are." But the light surged brighter at her resolve. Every ounce of darkness in her soul became a tether, binding her not only to the pain, but to the resilience that had carried her through. "I will face whatever is inside of me. For my children," she screamed. "Mommy." Mia's quivering voice rose over the tumult, small yet strong, her grip unwavering. "Trust me. Focus on the light." With every word, Sarah led them toward it, her heart echoing a mantra of hope. As they surged through, the chaos around them exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors, each hue swirling together like forgotten memories finally seen. Suddenly, she stood on the threshold, an opening revealing forgotten truths mixed with the essence of their family's laughter that had once filled the halls of their home. A final push threw them forward into a stunning brightness, illuminating the darkness around them. Laughter erupted, no longer menacing, but vibrant, echoing memories of joy. Faces from her past, those she had lost, now encircled them with soothing smiles. "Mommy! Look!" Ethan pointed, sparkling eyes capturing Sarah's attention. There, in that pure glow, were images of her family, her father, her childhood friends, all alive with warmth and love. The shadows began to melt away, their forms dissipating under the relentless brightness. "No! This can't be!" The darkness shrieked, twisting in agony. "You're tied to us. You can't escape. Watch me!" Sarah screamed back, the chanting surrounding her now an intimate song of freedom. The love she let in fortified her, pushing the shadows further away. With one last surge fueled by love and determination, she stepped forward, fully embracing all parts of herself, her past, her fears, her unwavering love for her children. As they crossed the threshold, the shadows broke apart, shrieking, their voices fading, leaving only echoes of despair behind. Just like that, the oppressive weight lifted, leaving them in a sun-drenched meadow, filled with the scent of blooming flowers. The vibrant colors flooded her senses, where peace enveloped them like a tender embrace. "Mommy, we did it!" Mia shrieked, laughter spilling like a melody into the air. "We did!" Ethan cheered, excitement bubbling. As they danced in the meadow, Sarah looked around, blinking against the bright sun. Nothing felt fearful here. Here, shadows held no power. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she breathed deeply. "I love you both so much," she whispered, heart full. "We're finally free." And as they tumbled into the wildflowers, Sarah's chest lightened, knowing they'd faced down the darkness and emerged victorious. This was their moment to heal. Their moment to move forward. Together, they would write a new story. "Let us go home," she said, warmth radiating from every fiber of her being. "This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss what's next. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts on Sarah's journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this conclusion. Let us keep building this amazing community together.